Thank you. Honorable Mente.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm going to go straight to the points. Firstly, Chair, let's appreciate you paying attention to the people when they are appealing to parliamentarians and public representatives to ventilate their frustrations and the maladministration that's taking place in our government. And in most cases, it's people that are within the space of government that will always blow a whistle. Be that as it may, now I'm getting to a point where when I receive these documents and I'm like, okay, but I'm worried about then priorities of the committee. And I get your frustration that you want to deal with RAF once and for all and afford an opportunity to both the CEO and the board to all state their case and bring evidence thereof, of whatever has taken place. But my worry is our priorities and the focus and things that we want to elevate, because constituting a full inquiry on an entity that's primarily focusing on less than 2% of the population. I mean, in terms of those that get affected by accidents, not necessarily their mandate. It's less than 2% people that get affected by accidents and they have to claim. Then we have people that get affected by service delivery everywhere, and they have been brought to us. Case in point, we were just recently in OR Tambo. Me and you, we agreed a lot in many things. We even brought members of the public to come and tell us how rotten the government is, and services that don't get to the people, officials that do not implement the mandate, that do not perform, but money is leaving the coffers with a speed of an eye blink. And with those matters, the Speaker also again gave us some of the municipalities where there's serious concerns of maladministration, people do not get services, projects not being finalized, to a point where nothing is getting to the people. Now, for someone who's outside this committee, and we try to explain, we are now starting an inquiry on RAF when there's municipalities that do not perform at all. And with the example I just made is that what made things worse is the recent floods that befell the Eastern Cape, and in particular KSD again in OR Tambo, where the municipality could do zero, simply because they have absolutely no capacity to do anything. Not that that capacity was not in the plan. It was in the plan, paid for, but never materialized in terms of the actual equipment being there for the people to make use of. To a point where people were only saved 6-7 hours later because we're waiting for divers and equipment and everything. That was 6 hours away in Gqeberha, in Durban, and all of those things. So I'm trying to persuade you, Chair, to say, yes, there are matters at RAF footy. No one can ever argue with that. But in terms of the volume of the cases of people we see on a daily basis, I do not think it will be fair for us to have an inquiry based on an entity that's just servicing a few people. Yes, we will pay attention to it the best way we know how, but a priority of that nature, maybe if we were to be given an opportunity for all of us to say, which area should we prioritize in order for us to make an inquiry which is based on how our people are suffering out there, I wouldn't pick RAF as the most number one of them. Then number two is that the issue of the accounting standards. In the previous parliament, the issue was dealt with a lot. And RAF was cautioned. And I remember very well when we started parliament in our first meeting, where we were getting to understand what each government institution, and in particular our wives as COPA, are going to assist us with first wife, second wife, and the third wife. Yes, it was AG, Treasury, and SIU. So when we met with our wives, as Tembu said, the first thing I asked our first wife was, there's a matter of RAF you people have to resolve, because we dealt with this issue. RAF is raising its own pertinent issues on the issue of accounting standards. And it's been made clear various times, Chair, and I agree with you. We cannot have a favorite that must not follow the law. The law is law. That goes without saying. But when there are issues within the scope of accountability and how the situation at RAF in particular, having been not an insurance, but money that's there sitting for whoever has an accident, which is not predetermined as well. We don't know how many accidents we'll have today. We don't know how many claims we'll have today. So if you have 1 million rand and then you have 5 million worth of accidents, there's nothing you can do. And that's what RAF has been saying. If we have 1 million and then there are claims that are above 5 million and it's beyond their control. So in that spirit, I asked the first wife, have you now gone back to look at how best yourselves, RAF, ASB, and the executive, you can deal with this matter? Because ASB has been to Parliament to explain how can this matter be tackled, and they had the resolution on how it can be tackled. AG explained and said, yes, there can be a matter, but it's not their space. The space is ASB and the executive. And the executive also agreed that, okay, stop taking AG to court, now account, but let's engage the ASB so that it can formulate the standard which is suitable for you to account, and we don't have this matter. So this matter is a matter that has been canvassed a long time ago. And I don't think even after our inquiry we're going to resolve it, because the matter will always be there. Whether it's Collins Litswalo or it's Veronica Mente or it's Songe Zuzibi, if that one of the accounting standards is not corrected, the matter is not going to go away. We can have the inquiry, but in terms of accountability, we need to resolve a matter of how does RAF account? How does it budget? How does it use its income and expenditure? How does it document it? And that's what it is. Now, here is my other problem. The same AG comes to us and say, yes, with all these issues we have in terms of our 3 areas of audit, the financial statements, there's still a huge disagreement that these people do not comply with the accounting standards on how they are drafting the financial statements. Therefore, the financial statements are not drafted up to standards. Yes, we all agree, and that must be corrected. Secondly, on performance, they say this entity performed exceptionally well. from 180 days to 120 days, the backlog being dealt with, everything being dealt with, money has been saved. We all applaud, we are happy. It's AG telling us, the same Auditor General, telling us that the current management at RAF with the board have taken decisions that have saved the country so much money. Part of those are what happened when the, what was that panel of lawyers term or contract ended. It was not renewed. That became a big hullabaloo in the last parliament, that no, it must be renewed. Those people were not saving RAF, but they were plummeting RAF into much deeper crisis because cases were prolonged to such a way that every time there is such a backlog of cases that must go to court because they are not finalized within 180 days. Now, the issue of 180 days is being dealt with. No one is going to court for that, for delaying claims. We are going to court for claims that have been there. Secondly, there are law firms that are there that have been taking money out of RAF because of what the work that they are doing and all of that. It was explained to us. It's millions, and then top 2 or 3 firms taking a lot of money out of RAF. And when the CEO dealt with that and had at some point had a press briefing, then there was also inconsistencies in terms of how we deal with that matter. But be that as it may, when it was reported to us, like you are saying, we didn't dispute it. We agreed that, yeah, these firms now no longer have to find expression because the 180 days issue is not there and they must not do it. And we all agreed that the public must come and claim on their own. We all agreed that RAF must have a drive that is to conscientize people how to claim, where to find RAF. They must avail offices closer to the people so that people do not have to fall victims of lawyers that go to them in hospitals the moment the accident happens. I think there is another syndicate that is operating in hospitals, doctors and nurses, because you will be laying in hospital after an accident, then you get approached by some lawyer that you didn't invite. So to cut that and that corruption, because the same lawyers do not even give the people their own money, which was another shortcoming which RAF was not monitoring. Now, we agreed that those things must happen and RAF must tackle those things. What I'm struggling to understand is then where did the problem start, or where do we come in? Because we are now going to be remote controlling the movements of RAF and all of that. As far as inflation of those people who must execute the task in terms of whatever media coverage, those campaigns and all of that, that's something else which has to be dealt with. But if how it comes to be an inquiry, I'm struggling to understand that. The other thing we all agree that it must be corrected, which the inquiry is not going to resolve if that is not corrected, is the issue of the legislation in RAF and how it allows people to steal money from RAF. That includes the medical aid insurance companies that take our own money. After taking our money, they still go take money from RAF to pay the same person. It's the matter of hospitals that claim at RAF. It's the matter of the lawyers as well. So there was a list we asked from RAF in the last meeting, a meeting before the last one. That meeting, I think it was March, which was sent to you. And in that, we asked which are these hospitals and how much has been paid to them and why this space is not regulated, because the legislation must regulate. If their hospitals must claim, what are they claiming? Because Hospital A will claim for a tow 1 million. Hospital B will claim 100 rand for a toenail. And then my claim through lawyer 1 will be 1 million from RAF, but through lawyer B, it will be 50,000 from RAF. So there has been that gray area as to how do we get different claims for same or rather similar accidents, but people get different claims of that. What's taking place now is the board and the CEO, as we have seen in the transport committee, transpiring there after our engagement. Unfortunately, myself and Skosana were not here. Then after our engagement, then transport committee takes over. Then there is a full-blown war between the CEO and the board. And that is informed by what the board did to the CEO and the CEO fighting back for his life with the board and all of those things. That also, I don't know how we're going to get involved, because the executive ultimately must deal with the board, must deal with RAF. And yes, we can get in terms of utilizing the constitution and the legislation on how the things should be done. But what is it that we would want to address in a war? There's a turf war between the CEO and the board. That goes without saying. And it cannot be resolved by us in the inquiry. I feel that the executive is failing and is not doing its job. The executive must deal with its mandate, and the executive must deal with the issues of RAF. That must not be given down to Scopa, that Scopa deal with these people for us. People must do the dirty things. It must not be Scopa who's going to be doing the dirty. We are not scared of doing dirty work. We'll do the dirty work. We'll fire people. We'll inform the communities of who is stealing where. But the executive must rise to the occasion and act where it has to act, the way it has to. If the CEO has to take them to court, or the board must take the CEO to court, they must do it there. They must not use us, because we have a bigger community to attend to, and that community is waiting for us. Chairperson, I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mente. And I'll come to honorable members as well. But I do think that I also need to honor you with some direct responses. So one of my concerns with specifically the volume of work, and I'm repeating the point, is that we are not able to deal with the matters, at least in terms of my own space. I really cannot tell people who bring pertinent information about financial losses and so on that, I'm sorry, we're dealing with other matters now. I can't in good conscience do that. The question is, how does the committee handle such a volume of issues in such a way that it's able to attend to some of the matters? As it happens, Honorable Mente, one of the conversations I had last week was both with the finance minister and the mayor of the OR Tambo District Municipality as an example. One of the things this committee has to do is that, to the extent there's going to be emergency aid that goes there, we must make sure that we work with the Auditor General to make sure it's not eaten. Because we've seen this problem with COVID. We can't do that if we're dealing with one institution coming here back and forth all the time. So that's the one. The second is, I appreciate that you've had other commitments also for Parliament outside. We actually seized with the matters of the very municipalities that you're talking about. And in fact, we're planning oversight. So we've already taken presentations from the AG, from the SIU. Next step is now how we deal with those municipalities themselves. So what I'm trying to say, Honorable Mente, is that this is not an either or. For me as chair, we are seized with those matters, and the members have been dealing with some of those issues as well. I do need to deal substantively with the issue of waste. In fact, firstly, with the issue of how the road accident, the kind of challenges the road accident fund has to deal with. They are not the only one. We had the compensation fund here. They identified the same kind of problem, exactly the same kind of problem as the RAF, in as far as how their financial statements are prepared. you know what? They are complying in the meantime. That's the point. That's the difference. There are other instances where an institution sits here because our first wife says they have not done work. Let me give you a very specific example. We had ESCOM sitting here. Municipalities complete their financial statement. Their financial year ends in July. ESCOM's financial year ends on the 31st of March. ESCOM is not able to say what the impairment on municipal debt is going to be because municipalities are in disarray, they can't complete their financial statements and so on. So painfully, they accept what the first wife is saying, even though they can do nothing about the lack of readiness of municipality A that owns ESCOM 3-4 billion. And the Auditor General comes here, tells us ESCOM can't get their financial statements ready on time. They take it on the chin. I then asked, and you will see, Honorable Mente, and this is why these things are important. I then asked the Road Accident Fund, because you can also exonerate management, where on the basis of legal advice, they then took certain decisions. I then asked, please send the legal advice that you got. They say we don't have it, it doesn't exist. So now you're asking, but on what basis do you go on and spend all of this money? So that's one. The second thing, Honorable Mente, I think the administration of justice in South Africa is very important. We have the Legal Practice Council here tomorrow. In fact, to ask the very questions about law firms that rip off the RAF, they're here tomorrow. So we're attending to that matter as well. But if you enroll a matter, the biggest court in South Africa is a Gauteng court. If you enroll a matter today, they will hear it in 2030 because of the Road Accident Fund. People, indigent and otherwise, need access to speedy justice. Nearly 60% of that backlog is caused by the Road Accident Fund. Now, they might not be paying law firms, but our second wife is investigating how the default judgments where the RAF is not there to defend them rack up to 4.7 billion at last count, which taxpayers must pay. Because had the RAF defended those matters, we would be paying less, which means we save on the lawyers, we also save on the claims. So all I'm trying to say, Honorable Mente, is I hear you. However, the matters and the financial impact are actually really material. There are also service delivery issues if you consider the delivery of justice to various people to be important. We can't make people wait 5 years before their matter is heard in court. I'm also cognizant, finally, of the dispute between the Road Accident Fund and the board and the ministry and so on, and the tenure of the CEO. One of the things I love about what we are deciding today, I'm told the tenure of the chief executive ends in August sometime. That's not my problem. Whether the CEO continues or doesn't continue, that's not what this committee is concerned with here. Whoever has to account at an appropriate time must come and account. They must deal with the matters of whose contract is renewed and when. But there are clearly material issues that I think we need to deal with. My proposal, as I've said, which I will then ask the members if, and I think members have expressed their view, that we proceed with this so that we can leave the RAF alone for a year, if it must be, until they have to present their financial statement, because we've dealt with it. Then we can deal with the service delivery matters and so on. But I appreciate the comments, Honorable Mente, because that's my difficulty as well with having to deal with an avalanche of emails on one institution when the committee oversees over 400. Even for the committee staff, it's a misallocation of their time. So we can't escape the problem, unfortunately. We end up being in it. My proposition is this, that we obviously asked for the assistance of the Auditor General in the preparations. They are clearly in the audit itself. So some issues might actually just be dealt with in the normal course, because all we get is an answer. We don't need to to ask people any further, because the AG will present. I want to propose that we still not delve into the specifics of matters the SIU is dealing with especially where conclusions have no. So in other words, you don't identify a person, bring them here when the matter still needs to be concluded in as far as the SIU investigation is concerned. The only thing the SIU may assist us with is where there is a piece of information that would inform the committee properly, and then we can deal with it on that basis. But I don't suggest we run a parallel process to the SIU. Similarly with the police, I don't think we should ask them what investigation they've got going on and then we run a parallel investigation at the same time. Let us confine ourselves to oversight in respect of maladministration, in respect of financial mismanagement, financial impact on the road accident fund, and good governance. The policy matters, I agree with Honorable Mente. The road accident fund is dealing with a liabilities problem, not of its own making. And the Transport Portfolio Committee needs to speed up the process of changing legislation so that these matters can be resolved. So I am going to do this and I will need guidance. I think the only person I heard saying maybe an inquiry is not needed is Honorable Mente. Do I understand that correctly? I don't want to misstate. Or do we have someone who says also, because I don't want to assume that we know how the committees voted. I really want to be specific so that we know what decisions we are taking here. Honorable Scosa?
No, Chair, the issue of inquiry, indeed, it caught me by surprise. By the way, I must make a disclaimer on that. But I think we should consider all the other avenues, because these inquiries as well takes time, Chair. You know, you might have a different opinion to say it will be completed within a short period of time. But from my experience of what I've seen, even when I'm still outside Parliament, inquiries is like commission of inquiries. You know, there's so many things. You've got the Zondo, so-called State Capture Commission, which took, I don't know for how long. There were deadlines, there was extended, there were issues. I'm just giving an example. For me, sometimes there's a waste of time. So for me, if there's another alternative, the better. Thank you.
So I ran the risk of kind of messing up my own order. So Honorable Madlala, I'll give you a chance. Honorable Atkinson I put up his hand a long time ago, but please continue, then I'll come to Honorable
Thank
Atkinson.
you, Chair. I want to understand this inquiry thing. I think maybe I did not capture it very well earlier. My understanding is that we're saying SIU must get an expanded proclamation because there are issues that keep popping up and we are not a right platform to ventilate all of these matters. And we're saying HSA, go and look into others. So it's not like there's going to be I might not understand that there's going to be a separate inquiry where there is a chair of an inquiry, and we're just saying the existing institutions, because matters keep on propping up and we can't ventilate them. We ask them to say, within your area of expertise in any way, but just go and look further into these issues, and these are the terms of references. I want to understand if there's an inquiry or it's what I understand to be saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Madlala. Let me explain. So we're going to have both because the two are not the same thing, right? So what will happen is that there will be two things that happen in the background. The first is that we compile all the information received so far, right? Whether it is submissions of the RAF, the ministry, and so on, plus whistleblower accounts and all of these kind of things, plus the questions and requests for documents that I have made and that we now will make. We then compile all of that and synthesize it with the staff of the committee, so that each of the members has a complete file, instead of calling up the RAF each time to come and account. Okay, so we deal with that. And we then, on the basis of that information, and I've at a high level shared some of that, we then set aside a time where the same members of committee deal with everything, right? Part of what comes out of that is that the committee might conclude that we need a special audit, for instance, as it has done before. So outside of the normal audit, the Auditor General needs to give us a special audit on certain matters. We now we need to inquire properly first so that it's an informed ask. So that is the first thing. The second thing is we might then say, for an example, and there is information already, and that's what I'm proposing. There's information that is obvious. In other words, someone says, it's me who was involved. I did the following. The SIU is already investigating. Pass that on. Some of it does not fall within the scope of the current investigation. In those instances where the whistleblowing is clear and comprehensive, we simply ask the SIU to expand the scope of its investigation because the information is there. They might deal with it, right? The third is that out of these inquiries, we might decide that actually the ministry has been failing and we need to hold the minister accountable and the deputy minister and so on. But we've had them here to answer the question. So it's not an either or, Honorable Madlala. It's to say, to curtail these 20 meetings with the RAF, let's pull the information together, have one. Now, that might mean we just allocate a week to do that. And we deal with it and we're done. What we have to do clearly, both in terms of the terms of reference and the specific matters we deal with, we don't go over what the committee should deal with. So in other words, we're not going to conduct forensic investigations here. And we know that should we. We deal with matters that pertain to oversight so that we can then hold the executive accountable. So I hope that makes things clear. Otherwise, we're going to have them here 4 or 5 times a year, and I don't think that's appropriate. As Honorable Mente said, it misdirects our time. So that's what I'm proposing. Anything that comes after, it will then have to come in the normal course. Sorry, we can't keep dealing with the RAF the whole year. Thank you. Honorable Atkinson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I think in my opening comments, I made the point that the likelihood is that this could well dwarf anything that that Scopa has dealt with as far as money that has been lost or misappropriated. So I think it's incredibly important that we actually do a proper inquiry into what's been going on at the Road Accident Fund. And I know, we get the SIU and we get the NPA here and people complain because we don't seem to be getting the correct amount of prosecutions and people feel that everyone's getting away with corruption and everything. And I think if we kind of make the comment, there's so much else out there that we must be doing that we can't sort of spend too much time on RAF, that there's a possibility of us doing exactly what the South African public doesn't want. The South African public actually wants to start seeing results from investigations into maladministration and corruption. And I think this is a prime example. We've seen it. There's so much here about where the committee has been lied to, where information that we've been given doesn't accord with what we're getting from whistleblowers. The fact that the organization has been continuing on its own merry way, in effect contravening the law and quite possibly run by a CEO who's actually not even legally appointed to his position. So there's a hell of a lot wrong there that we need to look at. And I think the issue is this committee's success will be measured as to the success that we have on bringing people to account. Unfortunately, if we have to deal with all the corruption in South Africa, we would probably need 25 scopers. We'd need 25 of these committees to deal properly with everything. So in a sense, the committee also has to make decisions as to what's the most relevant, and actually look at the kind of amounts of money involved. And I do believe in this, that as much as Mr. Letswalo tells us he saved the country money, I think that's yet another lie that will be shown when, as Honourable Nontenja said, we have a proper forensic audit into this whole thing, and we understand the liability that he's actually incurred for the Republic of South Africa and for our taxpayers as well. So I'm very much in favour of a proper investigation into this, and I'm very much in favour of this committee getting to the bottom of it and getting consequences for people's bad actions. Thank you.
Honourable Neil May and then Honourable Skosan.
No, thank you, Chair. And Chair, I think Parliament has a constitutional duty to hold public entities to account. And the RAF is entrusted with compensating vulnerable road users, a matter of constitutional justice human dignity and public trust. I think it's very important that those are the key words that we need to remember. This is not just any other entity. I think a committee inquiry is not just warranted, it is obligatory in this case, given the scale and severity of the governance and operational failures. I think it is absolutely, out of all the entities and all the presentations that we've had, I would say this would be number one. And I think we need to focus on that. And at least we owe it to the public and the citizens out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Skosan.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to strengthen your point and the points that were also raised by Honorable Atkinson and Honorable Neil May, I think the advantage of this process, Honorable Madlala, is to give an opportunity to everybody all at once. Because immediately the public is made aware that we are going to do this inquiry, and everybody who's got an information, they will be able to come forward and says, I need an opportunity, I want to present this. Then we deal with all that information all at once. You see, so that we run away from the point where this week we are calling RAF because there's a whistleblower who have submitted a certain information, so we want clarity from them. 2 months later, somebody has written to the committee, then we say, hey, let's call the RAF to come and respond. So we are avoiding to keep on calling them now and again. I think that will save time on our side, but it also save time on their side so that you will also have more time to focus on their responsibility as an entity. So once we publicize this thing, every person or every entity that is having any information that can assist in the inquiry will be able to come forward. And once we're done, we're able to focus on other things. Because if we do it by piecemeal, I think it kind of disorganizes us, and it also disorganizes them as an institution that now time and again we have to call them. They must fly from wherever they are and come to Cape Town and respond to issues. So let's get all the issues at once, consolidate them, put some dates, and then get every person that we think is important to share any information that we think that can assist us. And obviously, like we have indicated, if there's an information that require SIU, we will be able then to take that information and refer to SIU so that they can consider having a proclamation to extend their scope of investigation. So that's the advantage of having the process. But as much as we're doing RAF alone, it doesn't mean that it is the only institution. Like colleagues have indicated, there are quite a number of institutions that have challenges, and government departments, municipalities, etc. But now to do this, it will send a strong message to other entities, to other departments, and to municipalities that if they are found to be on the wrong scope, can take the route of having this kind of inquiry. So it's just one, but it will serve a strong message, and it will serve as an example. So I think it's a very important exercise that we need to take. Thank you very much.
All right, honorable members, can I then, on the basis of this discussion, conclude that we are going to have an inquiry. We will send in writing to the members the proposed terms of reference. The members have an opportunity to make comment on that. On the 1st of July, we will then discuss and finalize them properly in this way. What is important is that, and this is where the public may be dissatisfied, we have to stick within the ambit of the mandate of this committee. Some things may be for the Transport Portfolio Committee to deal with, and we just need, and I will get the advice of the Parliament Legal Services to make sure that both in terms of the rules and the Constitution, we stick within what is in our ambit. The maladministration, financial mismanagement, waste, etc., all of those things. Not everything, we're not conducting an audit, but instances where the committee has had oversight issue before and continues to do so, and to the extent that we need to be sure what actions are being taken to address them. Then we will sit and invite those people here. We will testify under oath, but we will keep the members informed always. So the terms of reference will not be concluded without the committee formally adopting those terms of reference to do so. I am looking at the time. We haven't had a break, one. And secondly, we're supposed to finish at 1. So are the members happy that we just find time to consider the reports, because we're now at 12 o'clock? And that we can find the time, right? So we'll find in the next week time for us to consider properly the reports that we're supposed to deal with today. Can we adjourn, members, on that basis? Thank you very much.